Kia ora, welcome back to Video Drones, or if this is your first time with us, welcome. I'm Hannah Harte.
And I'm Nick Hannah.
Yay! And every week, well, at least every week, I think pretty much every week, we like to try and come at you with a deep dive into something that we are currently fixated on for one reason or another. This week it so happens to be The Devils by Ken Russell, who is a breathtakingly flamboyant English director. He's British, but you wouldn't know that because his films are so dang crazy. You think that they were American. But I always used to think he was American, actually, until I started looking into him, and because he's just so over the top and crazy. But there is that, you know, the British do things in like a particularly kind of weird way. And they do absurdity and stuff, and extremism.
Well, just different to
Bonkers.
America.
It's a little bit bonkers in a different way. I really enjoy British comedy.
I'd probably think of him as British, but that's probably because I've watched more of his like composer films, which he's done a lot of, and they all. Yes. He tends. I mean, I don't know. All the actors tend to be British, and quite obviously British. I mean, The Lair of the White Worm is definitely a very British film.
It's British, but see, the first film of his that I saw, Gothic. I saw Altered States. Was the first film.
Yeah.
Well,
William Hurt.
It's got William Hurt in it, and it's an all-American cast. It's very like Americanish, so I associated him with that film.
That's a rare one for him. I mean, Whore as well is kind of seems like an American film. Has Teresa Russell in it.
Teresa Russell. That's
Kathleen Turner's in Crimes of Passion, which is one of my favourite of his films.
And it's also got Anthony Perkins in it.
And it's got that great song that you can
sing.
It's
a lovely life. It's so weird, but it's like really shrill and intense.
I like that one a lot.
It's really weird.
I like his bonkers ones the most. I mean, all of his films are a little bit weird, but you know, Crimes of Passion, Whore, Gothic, Lair of the White Worm, and this one especially. This is his most bonkers film.
Well, in a way, it's his most bonkers, but at the same time, it's quite sort of a traditional story. It is based on a true story.
Yeah, true.
And I sort of thought, some of the characters and the costumes, I thought, nah, there's no way they were wearing that in the 1600s, but they were. They were these sort of rock star exorcists and these crazy gloves, and it looks so theatrical and almost like it's been sort of made up, but it's all quite period accurate, right down to the pair of scissors that they used to cut one of the characters' hairs.
It is theatrical and it is made up because it was based on a stage play called The Devils. But that stage play was based on the novel by Aldous Huxley. Huxley wrote
I love Huxley.
A novel called The Devils of Loudun,
oh my goodness!
So it is based on a play, and it's also you know how I kept saying when we were watching it, this looks very modern, or it's kind of. It looks very contemporary to the times. It didn't just look like a medieval kind of setting. And Derek Jarman, who's a very, very good director, and was a very good director in his own right, very idiosyncratic, and he was actually the set designer on the film, which is pretty amazing, even to just think of that fact. But he was told by Ken Russell to make it as not just contemporary but futuristic as possible. So he based the set designs on Fritz Lang's Metropolis.
Which isn't futuristic. Well, it is futuristic in a 30s way, a 30s version of the future.
Yeah, but it's...
That's nuts. It actually reminded me of Jodorowsky's Holy Mountain in a couple of moments there.
Yeah, a lot of things did.
That says a lot about how incredible the production design was. And very sort of archetypal with the nuns. There's a nun with a really bent neck the whole time. I kept thinking when I first saw her, she was leaning, but she's like that the whole time. It is so intense watching that.
You know how I said that I thought that... that was Madame Zora from Blade Runner.
Yeah,
it wasn't, no. but that's Vanessa Redgrave, who I always get mixed up with Joanna Cassidy, who did play Zora. But yeah, she's a great actor, and I definitely they look very similar back in those days. They did.
Yeah, especially when she's got the nun's habit on. By the way, I went to catch up with my best friend Alison today, and I had a coffee, which on top of sleep deprivation and a generally very hectic week has made me feel very intense and very strange. I thought, should I even do this video? But yeah, intense and strange is kind of what Ken Russell is all about, so it's kind of perfect. This is her artwork, by the way. This is like from a card she made me. It's one of her little creatures. I have one tattooed on my back, and that's next to Henry Turner. He's our buddy. He is going to be super famous. He's a young artist, and he is crazy good. So I've got them sitting there next to each other, being friends. So yeah, excuse the manic energy.
Yep.
I've also combined it with some clonazepam to try and calm down the manic energy I got from the caffeine, but that's just done
Doesn't
something
sound
even
like
weirder.
it's working.
No, I'm just slightly less inhibited than
Yeah.
I probably would be.
Probably.
So that's kind of the perfect mix
good.
for this review. I mean, why
Yeah.
not? Yeah, Ken Russell is bonkers. We'd like to do another review more, because there's a whole documentary that we found about him that we haven't watched, and I'd love to kind of go on and on about Altered States. It's like my top 100 films. I love that movie. But The Devils is what we're going to focus on today.
It is.
And it was banned. It was banned.
Well, I actually
places,
don't know
apparently.
if it was. Was it?
You said it was.
Well, I thought it was originally, but I think it was just censored very heavily. Warner Brothers, who released the film at the time, they have refused to let the film come out in its proper form, because after Mark Kermode did a lot of research on the film, he discovered all of these extra scenes in the rape of Christ sequence that would have.
It's not really a rape of Christ. It's sort of consensual.
But that's what it's considered.
That's considered.
That's what Ken Russell called the scene.
Interesting.
The rape of Christ scene.
Yeah. Okay.
And
that wouldn't have been very popular.
Yeah, and he discovered all these extra scenes, or not all, but maybe a few, that would have made the film even crazier or better. And so the people have been petitioning Warner Brothers to release a director's cut of the film for years now, and they didn't, because what did they call it? I don't know if I've written it down here, but a distasteful tonality is what they said. The film displayed a distasteful tonality, and they didn't want to release it for reasons like it's offending the church. But they've never released it. But the BFI, British Film Institute, they've released a proper cut with all those scenes.
That's pretty neat. I can see why it was so outrageous, especially at the time, because any film that's got lots of sex or sexuality being depicted, or any film that's got sort of religion in it, can be quite contestable.
The two combined, especially.
Yeah. When you chuck the two together and you kind of ramp up the volume on everything, that can create something that will make the censors very uncomfortable and the public very uncomfortable. But the thing is, you can tell that Ken Russell is incredibly cynical about religion and the part that the church has played in history, and it's basically all about how the hysteria and the sort of manipulation of the truth and pushing for it's about the church and the state and the politics, and the politics behind someone who's in power, and because he's a religious figure, trying to basically make him come across like he's a really evil person. There's sort of these accusations of witchcraft. So it's all been sort of hyped up by the church, and this idea of exorcisms and carnality is sort of thrown in there, but it's all psychosomatic. It's all been created by the church, who believes these things are happening when none of this is actually happening. The main character here, the sort of the religious figure that also is sort of, I guess, like the mayor of the town. This is in 1634 Loudun in France. Since the time where there was plague everywhere. It was quite a crazy time, but quite opulent in a lot of sense, especially for the monarchy. And there's this sort of central figure, a religious leader, that's become basically like a mayor, like a spokesperson for the town. And he's no saint. He's definitely like a bit of a lad. He gets around a wee bit. He's certainly no angel at all, and he definitely violates his priestly vows. But compared to what the church then tries to sort of do to him in order to attain the town and tear down the walls of the town and make the town part of a wider France, is really vile. It's kind of when, if you watch anything or read anything about the witch trials, about all these innocent women that were persecuted because of the strange hysteria and the state trying to gain control. It's similar in that kind of dynamic. So really, when you're looking at it, who's really the bad people in this? It's
the church.
It's the
of course
church.
They are.
So that would be a very problematic, and you were not really supposed to even say that now.
Regarding the meaning of it, I've watched some interviews, and Oliver Reed said it was really to reflect the hypocrisy of the times, and this is 1970, and they even specifically said that the Troubles in Ireland You know, like the
between the Catholics and the Protestants,
yeah,
which is this film talks about quite extensively.
Yeah,
This terrible war that's been going on for centuries between the Catholics and the Protestants. It's bizarre, isn't it? Like,
It is.
especially in Ireland, there was, you know, full-on bloodshed and warfare because of it.
Yeah, this is a big topic in 1970.
Yeah, it links back, you know, the eternal return. Things just keep on happening the same way. You think we've progressed as a species, but we haven't really. And there's some sense here you're thinking like, this is just obscene, nothing like that could ever happen anymore, but these things are still going on. We haven't changed that much as a species.
It's going to keep happening, really. The eternal return.
The eternal return.
So this is a film in a long line of Naughty Nun films.
Naughty Nuns.
I mean, what's the one that we just watched? Paul
Verhoeven.
Benedetta.
Yeah.
There's Dark Habits by Pedro Almodovar, and Black Narcissus. They aren't so naughty, they're just sort of scary nuns. But there are lots. I mean, I've just been looking at a list online. If you Google Naughty Nun films, you'll see there's tens of, not hundreds, but many Naughty Nun films.
In the 80s, a lot of people, sort of punks, would wear these habits, these black habits with the nuns' habits with their clothing, and it's kind of a thing, isn't it?
That Almodovar film is an 80s Naughty Nun film, and that's very punky as well.
That's probably where a lot of people got that idea from. Then I need to see that.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Yes, and there was a musical theme that, I mean, he's made a lot of films about composers, and there's a theme by Berlioz, who he obviously is a big fan of, and that theme was played by a small sort of band in the streets at the start of the film, but it was also featured in The Shining.
Yeah, so straight away I heard that. There's a really nice version of it, actually.
It's been used in a lot of films, actually.
It was a very Clockwork Orange kind of vibe going on in this film too.
Definitely. I think there's a definite link between those two. I mean, especially even that that pause when right at the start of the film, when His Majesty is kind of dressed up as, or not dressed up, he hasn't got any clothes on really, as a woman, and he's on stage, and then he leans over in front of one of the, like the Pope or something, and he gives him this really kind of evil look that reminds me of Alex from Clockwork Orange, and then the credits say the devil's in bloody red.
Oh, it's so good. That Critic Sequence is fantastic. Yeah, it begins with this opulent spectacle of the monarch emerging from a giant shell, emulating Venus, surrounded by male dancers in fantastic costumes. He's wearing this sort of like shells as a bra and underwear. So it's strange to see this monarch and dressed in this way, and all the sort of the ladies of the court are actually men dressed up, and they're sort of cavorting with each other, and there's this interesting homosexual sort of subtext going through with the monarch, but the monarch being, you know, he's like hedonistic, he's into, you know, he's breaking all the rules of convention. Homosexuality is rife, and yet here he is in cahoots with the holiest person in France, and they're sort of making this deal together. It's sinister, the things that they did in France, especially to the Protestants. There's a scene where the king is, you see him just shooting, and this Pope is having words with him. Yes, whatever. And then you see the lines of people, and this released from a cage, there's someone dressed up in a blackbird outfit with a big mask on. It's so surreal. And as the blackbird runs off, he's just shooting them, and they're falling down to their deaths. And apparently they were Protestants, so they used to make fun out of how they killed Protestants in those days, just merry, joyful fun, and you know, the court is all having a delightful time. There
were some plague doctors using leeches, dried vipers, hornets, crocodiles, the crocodile between this woman's legs.
Not the crocodile, just thrown out the window. Not the crocodile.
Simian reptile, as they said, to combat plague victims.
The plague was definitely quite a strong subtext in there, which is quite relevant to our times. Things always got a bit more hysterical and crazy during plague times, because of course they didn't have modern medicine, so they were blaming this sort of thing on witches and witchcraft and sins and things like that.
Yeah, great cast in this film. So we have Oliver Reed, who was in The Brood by David Cronenberg. He also had a very memorable role in Gladiator by Ridley Scott.
Oh, who did he play in Gladiator?
He played the the sort of slave owner guy that sort of, yeah, how do I say it? So Joaquin Phoenix played the guy that does this,
The Emperor.
and so he's the guy. Oliver Reed plays the guy that brings all the slaves to the gladiator pit.
Oh, so he picks them out and buys them and things like that.
Yes,
Oh. Yes. He's got a great face. I found him really interesting.
He does.
Quite a modern-looking person in a strange way.
And he's also in Marla, Tommy, and Listomania by Russell. So they're obviously quite
Russell
good
loves
friends.
him.
Yeah. And The Devils was his favourite film that he's acted in. Vanessa Redgrave, who plays Mother Superior.
With the weird neck. She's a piece
amazing,
of work, man.
amazing performance.
Wow, it's an
That's
amazing
my favourite
performance.
But
she is really, her so-called visions, well, basically her obsession with him leads to his demise, which is, it's really interesting. You know, they're attacking an innocent man. There's a lot of, it's very, very, very interesting, the sort of themes that are going on there.
She plays the mother in Foxcatcher. You know, the crazy murderer guy in Foxcatcher. Do you remember that film?
Oh.
Foxcatcher. It's the film, the name, it doesn't seem to have much to do with it, but it's the one with Channing Tatum as the wrestler. And Steve Carell has that prosthetic makeup.
Oh, yeah, the title is really confusing, but it's about wrestlers.
Wrestlers.
Yeah. And boy, that is good. It is disturbing. It's totally based on a true story. It's actually very similar to a documentary I've seen on them. So that is a really interesting watch. Very disturbing.
So she's in that. She's also in
she's good.
Julian Schnabel's Miral, which is a really good film. Unknown, underrated, and very sort of not seen very often film by Schnabel. She's also in Atonement and Girl Interrupted and many, many other films. She's in that Deep Impact, that disaster film. But she's
cool.
She's in lots of really,
cool.
really good British films.
She's this really crazy intensity. She kind of has this creepy cackle. I just love it.
Oh,
and the fact that she acted the whole movie like this, it just made my neck hurt even looking at her. Yeah, incredible, unhinged performance. I loved her. She was just... Whoa, she's the worst and she was the best all at once.
She also considers this one of the best films she's been in.
Wow, cool.
She was expecting her second child with actor Franco Nero, who's the original Django. There's a film called Django, you know, that Quentin Tarantino based Django Unchained on. She was expecting a second child with this actor, but she miscarried during the filming.
Oh, man.
I wonder if the film had anything to do with it. Like if it was, she was probably doing a lot of physical sort of stunts.
It's quite a physical role, actually.
Yeah.
Just even like the emotional intensity of what's going on for her.
Yep.
Gosh, that's sad.
It's very sad.
That is sad.
Murray Melvin, who played that very old-fashioned, very thin, skinny guy.
The guy with the kind of bowl cut.
Yeah.
He looked like he was straight out of a painting from that era. I mean, he was just perfect. I was like, he looks exactly like someone out of those paintings. It was freaky. It was very eerie.
He's a very good actor, and he played Reverend Samuel Runt in Barry Lyndon. I love that name.
Can't wait to see Barry Lyndon one of these days. It's the only Kubrick I haven't seen. Hanging out for it, though.
Oh, you haven't seen some of his really early black and white ones, like the film noir ones. Michael Gothard was in it too. I think he played the rock star looking guy. Yeah,
the rock star exorcist. Boy, when he popped on the screen, I was like, he looks like like a 70s rock star or something.
He did, and he was in Toby Hooper's Life Force, his vampire film.
Oh, that film. He was so intense. Honestly, I love how pumped up and over the top and hyped these sort of performances are. I find them, I mean, they really emulate the religious zeal that I've grown up with seeing. Like, they're kind of really intense and these heightened emotions. That's all part of being in like a church that's really like extreme. It's not like a mellow church. This is 1600s Catholic church. They are working themselves up into these crazy frenzies, which just, become these maniacal kind of, what are they? It's like a mass psychosis, really. Convincing themselves that they're possessed, and so they allow themselves to do all sorts of crazy things.
Yeah,
It's really, my 18-year-old son watched it with us. Poor kid. We've seen some pretty strange movies with us, but he was just like, what is this? But he said immediately, he said, this is a very good director. He could tell that the director was very, very good. We all agreed that the cinematography was very interesting.
Yeah.
The score was very intense and very creative.
Was by a contemporary classical composer, Peter Maxwell Davies, who I really like, and I didn't know it was him. So that makes a lot of sense as to why it was so good, creating a mood.
Yeah, very unusual instruments that we used, and the sound design was really fascinating.
So having him on board and having Derek Jarman doing set designs, and Terry Rawlings was a sound editor on this. He actually edited Alien, Alien 3 and Blade Runner.
Oh, wow.
So it's got a very good caliber of people involved.
Makes sense. And the costumes.
Yeah.
They are something else. Honestly, a lot of those scenes were just like, they were like paintings in themselves. Just remarkable. But yeah, my son was quite disturbed and overwhelmed by it, I would say. But he still was, it was actually quite a good way for him to see Ken Russell for the first time. And we showed him a few scenes from Altered States, and he was like, wow, like really interesting. And the way, there's some scenes where it sort of goes in and out and in and out and out, zooming in and out quite intensely. And I think Ken Russell might be one of the first people to sort of use that technique.
Oh, that's his technique, definitely.
So cool to see the person, how he came up with it and how he used it. And now it's something that we're quite familiar with seeing in cinema. But when Ken used it, it was a new thing.
Yeah.
So he really did bring some really new things into
I feel like it kind of it went along quite well with a lot of there was a lot of masturbation in this film.
Was there?
Well, there was a bit of nun masturbation.
No, she was doing it to masturbating a candle.
Well, there's still masturbatory stuff happening.
Insinuated.
And that zoom in and out is quite a masturbatory
when the
technique.
Exorcist was watching them, it was kind of this. Oh no, it was the guy with the bowl cut was watching them, and he was sort of getting a bit worked up over it by it all.
He's a very sexual director as well. I mean, lots of his films have things like that, like Lair of the White Worm, and Gothic, and Horror, and Crimes of Passion. I mean, they're all very sexual films.
Yeah, I guess they are.
And
there's a lot of films of that era were, though. That was kind of like.
But he's more so than most. I mean,
he takes it to a next level.
He's not like an exploitation director, but he's
my son was like, how did he get people to do this? And I was like, well, either they're actors in the 70s and 60s that just don't really mind because it was kind of a more liberal era, or they could be sex workers, they could be erotic dancers.
You know Elvira?
Yeah.
Also known as Cassandra Peterson. She was originally cast in this film, but she dropped out when she discovered during a costume fitting that she'd have to have her head shaved to play one of the nuns.
Interesting.
So that's quite funny.
That would have been really interesting.
Yes.
Not all the nuns had their heads shaved though.
No, not all of them, but her one must have had to have that happen.
No, I like my tresses.
There's some wound licking in this film.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, so the main guy is named Grandier.
Grandier, he's the Grandier. I don't know if that's like a term, we should have looked it up, but I think it basically means it's the position in the church is Grandier.
Is it? Maybe
it's his name was
At one
Grandier.
point they said something Grandier, so I assumed it was his last name, but maybe not.
It's either like a term that denotes his profession and what he is in the community, or that was his last name. We'll do some more research later maybe.
Yeah.
We've had a really hectic week. We were just like, quick, what can we do that won't take too long?
Don't tell them that.
We do some really in-depth ones where we spend like multiple hours researching, but with this one we're like, let's just jump on it and just get it done. Yeah.
So I just took some notes and said lewd, wanton. These are words from the film. Public exorcism, obscene altar, fangs of Satan, depraved priests, vile heretics. The ecstasy. I was reminded of the Ecstasy of Saint Teresa, which is this book that's really good, written by a nun.
The script is really clever and sharp, and there's a lot of wonderful lines and wonderful things that are said in really interesting ways that really, I was so impressed with the script.
It reminds me of the film a little bit of Terry Gilliam and Fellini, who Gilliam is hugely influenced by. Just these sort of cluttered scenes with lots of people that the characters the actors almost look like Bosch or Bruegel or Dürer painting or something like that.
And it gets really close into some of the characters and slightly looking up at them, like Terry has, when you sort of feel very claustrophobic with these authoritative figures sort of right in there in your face. So that, yeah, I noticed that had that sort of vibe.
There's a scene right at the end where Vanessa Redgrave's nun is given by the thin guy with the bowl one of the burnt bones from the Grandier, and she's kind of sitting on the floor, and she takes the bone, and the bone looks kind of like, wow, it looks like a vibrator or something. It had like the two. I
think it's a thigh bone, but the way it's
two
been
bits,
chopped.
2 bits at the end look like balls.
Yeah, it's like she's
and then she sort of takes it and then like puts it out of the camera, and then it cuts. Like she might be using it like a vibrator, like an old school one. I feel like it's what's the word, alluded to, but you don't see anything happening.
Yeah,
but I'm sure
the
Ken Russell
like
thought when he was editing it.
Yeah, that is pretty sacrilegious.
Yeah,
it's pretty shocking, I guess. I mean, after Men, what is really shocking?
There was a legendarily lost TV debate between Ken Russell and this guy, who wrote a really harsh review of it for the Evening Standard. And they both, because he wrote this, they invited him and Ken Russell to appear on TV, and this debate of theirs got so heated that apparently Ken Russell was, quoting things out of his review from the newspaper, and then he wrapped the newspaper up and whacked this guy over the head with it.
I wish I could see that.
I wish I could too, yeah.
Apparently Ken is quite feisty. I mean, yeah, he definitely is for making this stuff. Actually, I was just going to say before I forget, a vibrator is something that vibrates.
Yeah, I know,
so it's called a dildo when it doesn't vibrate.
That's the word.
And there are examples of dildos that go right back to prehistoric times. Yeah. So they've always been a thing.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't correct.
It needs to be able to vibrate, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I
know more about Stone Age phalluses and dildos than I know about modern sex toys, to be honest.
And the one thing I should say is, a claim to fame of mine is that I was kind of stalked by Ken Russell's son on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, not really stalked, but just harassed, because I read a lot of, well, I don't really read it anymore, but I did read a lot of continental philosophy, and I still read a little bit, and
I like continental philosophy.
And yeah, you need to read some.
I know I've studied lots, so I haven't read.
You like the idea of it?
I do. I like the discussions I've had.
And his son was a big philosophy fan, and he sent me a friend request because of this, but then he started just posting, one of those annoying people that just posts stuff on your timeline. He was like posting things up to 3 or 4 times a day. I just had to kind of keep deleting it or hiding it from my timeline.
Yeah, I find that really weird.
It's annoying, so I had to block him. But
you had to block Ken Russell's son.
I did. Yeah.
What a shame. Sounds. Yeah. You have some interesting interactions with the people, I gotta say.
Yes. And a large portion of the set was accidentally detonated by Ken Russell. There's that great bit where they're like detonating stuff, and he says, if you don't detonate one more thing of it, you'll be killed or you'll die.
Yeah, one more brick falls on my walls, you'll die.
Yeah, and he says stop, because it's about to be demolished.
No more bricks. Yeah.
But yeah, it was said that this other guy admitted that the detonator, he said that he accidentally detonated it because he thought that Ken Russell had gone like this, but he was actually like just directing someone.
Like action.
Yeah.
Or something.
But then Ken Russell in a documentary about it said that he was the one that accidentally detonated it.
There's a moment where things do get detonated and the crowd looks genuinely like, what's going on? So maybe they kept that. It's pretty bonkers. Yeah, wow.
There was a lot of bonkers things that happened. 5 actresses, this is really bad actually, 5 actresses were actually sexually assaulted by some of the naked male extras in the crowd scene during the Rape of Christ scene. And Ken Russell called them a particularly bad bunch and said, I think the union knows what some of its members are like. So I remember think one woman actually said she was sexually assaulted, and 5 others said that they were inappropriately touched or something like that. So that's pretty awful.
I'd love to say that things have changed since then, but we all know that they haven't changed that much.
No.
Man, that's really messed up. Imagine the union knowing that there were people like that
I know.
and still sending them
That's
along.
very fucked up. Yep.
It's never going to end, this kind of bullshit.
It reminds me of that, because these men were naked, and they probably just thought, oh yeah, we can get away with it if we're in this sexual movie. But it reminds me of that Woodstock documentary that we saw with
with
so
women,
much
peace
people
and
in
love
crowds.
and stuff.
When they're in big crowds, they feel like they can get away with it or something.
Yeah, there was a lot of sexual assault and rape at Woodstock, so much for all that hippie idealism.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really disturbing.
It is.
I kind of don't want to watch it again knowing that, actually.
Yep.
That's really upsetting. It should never happen to someone while they're working. It should never happen to anyone for any reason ever.
No.
But especially not with the camera rolling. That's just... Man, that's really messed up.
Awful.
It's very disappointing.
It's a grim note to
That's
finish
a
on.
really grim note.
But I don't really have much else to say about the film. Unless you do.
Man, that's really disturbing.
Yeah. It is. Do you have anything else to say? No? Do you want to rate it? What would you give the film?
Man, I'm going to be reeling from that for a little while. Gosh. Well, I think it's really underrated and kind of one of the classics of its kind.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
I was really looking forward to it, and it was better than I thought it was going to be. So that's saying something.
I mean, it was really beautifully done.
I rated it on IMDb, and I gave it an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
Yeah.
So I think we'd both probably give it a 4.
Yeah.
2 4s out of 10 hearts. 8 out of 10 hearts between us.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Gosh. What are we gonna watch tonight to make it is there anything we can watch that doesn't? I mean, we found out that the guy from Jeepers Creepers, the director of Jeepers Creepers and Powder, is a pedophile. So
a very overweight pedophile.
If you had liked Powder and thought that was quite a sweet movie, that kind of ruined that movie for me because right at the end of us watching it, Nick's like, "Oh my god, that guy's a pedophile," and we're like,
"Well, it's true. I mean, we're stating the truth."
Man, oh man.
But he's one of these weird pedophiles who I shouldn't say weird because this happens all the time actually, but he's allowed to make films again. Like, he actually went to jail, and he's a convicted pedophile, not just an accused pedophile. But
and he groomed a young boy for many years and assaulted him over years, and he's still got work in Hollywood.
Yeah. So
he wasn't cancelled,
no.
Even though there was all this evidence. And
anyway, tonight we'll watch some good horrors. It's Sunday, so we need to watch.
We need to watch a horror. We need to find one that isn't...
I've got a couple lined up.
I hope there's nothing nasty lurking in those.
No. Well, there's one called A Banquet, a British sort of drama horror about anorexia. So we'll watch that, and then I thought we could... I've never seen Children of the Corn, so maybe we could watch that.
Okay, Children of the Corn is kind of like... Just silly and kind of fun and ridiculous.
Yeah. Linda Hamilton's in it.
And she is.
Or I thought we could watch what's it called? Cherry Falls, which is a horror with Brittany Murphy in it. It's a real teen horror. Yeah.
She had a really tragic situation too, though, Brittany Murphy.
Tragic, but she's not a rapist or anything.
No, but it's what happened to her.
Yeah. I know it's sad, but it's a really interesting film. It's very, very, very black humour, and it's an Australian director, kind of like we watched Valentine recently, which I thought was really good, by the director of Urban Legend, who's an Australian as well. They sort of have a very different sense of humour to American directors.
It was like a Jello.
Yeah,
it was very Jello-inspired horror movie, right down to the black gloves and the creative moiters.
Anyway, we're getting off topic, but
yeah, we are.
But go and watch a horror film to take your mind off this horrible bit of trivia
Yeah, but it's good to know these things.
It is.
And it is quite a remarkable film. It certainly is very one of a kind and
Definitely
quite an unforgettable experience. So we'll see you all next week. Take it easy, have a good week, and bye from us for now.
Bye.
Bye.